we've got a lot of things going on at once here in this face. We have like almost what looks like a porcupine sticking out of the front of this man's face of just bones. Well, now it's time to start pulling things together. While we're in the File tab, or the Animate tab, let's take a couple of these bones and we'll position them in different positions. We'll probably even make a semi good looking snare, just so we can see exactly what's going on with the mesh in different areas. We can grab the cheeks part here, we'll drag that up, see if we can make one of these eyes blink. We can bank that over just for fun. Grab one of the eyebrows, let's move the eyebrow up, all sorts of fun stuff. We only need to do this to half of the mesh because we know the other half is an exact mirror, so if anything goes wrong here and we fix it, we can apply that to the other side. I can already see, for example, we forgot to put the ear support on the other side, so I'll just backslash key on the keypad to add that left support bone. I'll just name that. Now you can see the influence of this mesh on each of these bones seems to leak over into different areas. Well, the cheek isn't getting as much as we thought it would get, but parts of the lips and parts of the nostrils are getting interference from the eyelids. So we're going to use MetaEffectors to isolate sections of these bones so they only influence what we ask them to. Let's go into Setup. And the MetaEffector is under the Tools block. MetaEffectors are user-defined fields of influence. They're little force fields that turn the mesh white when you're in weight mode. And we'll click on the Bodybuilder for now. And under the Tools tab, select MetaEffector. Use the plus key to add that. We'll call this MetaEffector Nate_mouth meta. Down here under the MetaEffector tabs, there's an Add Effector. Let me expand that. Add items to weight drawing list, all sorts of fun options in here. We're going to hold down the Control key and multi-select Mouth Meta and Bodybuilder. We're going to add items to weight drawing list, which will make this weight active, and we can take a look at how this mesh is going to get weighted. Now the Mouth MetaEffector is only a toolbox. It's only going to hold the force fields. It's not actually doing anything right now. So we need to add an effector. That would be like adding a bone to a bone effect. The MetaEffector is just sitting there without an effector in it until we put something on it. Let's move this one up to the top and position it right about where the mouth is. Now it's using the default width and height settings, so let's go to the Effector tab and we'll set the X, Y, and Z radiuses down a bit lower. For example, we'll start with 0.1. And we'll refine from there. We'll switch to a perspective view and zoom in. So what we have right now is if we were to attach all of these bones to this MetaEffector, we'd have kind of a lump of squishiness right in the middle that those bones would have influence over. So we'll drop the Y radius down to say 0.04, seems to be a much better number. We'll set the strength of this one to be a bit brighter. It's going to influence everything around the lips. And let's see, let's set the Y radius a bit higher actually, 0.6. So it also encompasses part of the nose. X radius to 0.11, we can make it look a little bigger. And the last thing we need to do is on this MetaEffector, take all of our lips, and there's a weight pull down that lets us select Mouth Meta. So it tells the bones, instead of creating their own weights through influence, it looks at the MetaEffector instead. So let's make sure that all of the lips are attached to this MetaEffector, except for the chin, of course. So we're going to animate now and take a look. If we grab any one of the bones here, see they have no influence on the mesh. Now, beforehand, this whole thing squished around kind of funky like. If we need to adjust how this mesh is, how the effector is weighting this mesh, we can go back into setup and set the weight of this MetaEffector to be a little more powerful. So we go to the mouth meta, we can set the minimum and maximum, and we can scale that to minimum and maximum. So we can say the max is 10. It makes it look a lot brighter. We go back into animate, you'll see that a lot more is under influence. And the influence is a lot harder around the boundary line. Let's go back. Let's set that to something a little less, like 2. And animate. Well, it seems to be doing an okay job right there. So we'll leave it the way it is. So go back into setup. And let's do the same thing for the eyelids, because the eyelids seem to be causing the most interference. You switch to a left view here and take a look. You can see why the eyelids are causing interference. Our eyelid sup-right and sup-left bones are actually closer than our nostril to certain control points, and so they're attaching themselves to it. We need to exclude this area and attach them to just the eyelid mesh. So go back to a back view here, and let's head back to the bodybuilder. Let's just parent that to bodybuilder while we're at it. We'll add another MetaEffector. We'll call this one Nate_eye meta. Let's add an effector to that. And with eye meta set, you can look, we're still in the weight drawing list. If we tap the check mark, then it makes the current selected MetaEffector active. Let's take a look at our effector, which is down here at the bottom again in its default view. Let's drag that up to where the eyeball is. Position it about the middle. We'll have to tweak the general position. Let's go to perspective view. Need to be in setup for this. And we'll set the X, Y, and Z radius to something like 0.05 first to start. So it doesn't look too entertaining yet. Drag that forward and you can see the field of influence showing up. Adjust the strength of that. So now what we have, so the X radius a little wider here, 0.55. Now we're defining an area that just the eyelids can affect, and so it'll ignore everything else here. Let's go back down to the bottom to our eyelid support bones. We'll just work on the right side now. We'll set the weight to eye meta. And lower eyelid sup R. Set that to eye meta. And take a look at what it does. You can immediately see that the nose is now having less influence. We're not getting a really weird crunching or creasing. Let's change that back to wireframe. So when we take a look at these now and move them, it's only attaching themselves to the mesh around the eyes where we've weighted. You can also see that it's given up control around where the eyebrow's gone. So the eyebrow now gets a chance to operate more mesh. Kind of cool, huh? Let's go back into setup. And on this looks pretty good for what we're doing. So we'll grab that MetaEffector right there and use the divide key to mirror that across to the other eyeball. I'm going to select the eyelid support left, upper and lower, and we'll set their weights to eye meta. We go back into animate. When we select the other ones, only it will operate the area around the eyelids. So we've done a pretty effective job at isolating upper and lower parts of this bits of mesh to match where the deformations are supposed to be. Now that we've excluded the eyelid from the nostril area, he now has full control over this nostril. Now we can go back to tweaking this a little easier. Let's clean up the scene a little bit here. Let's parent that to the bodybuilder mesh, because this is the mesh that these MetaEffectors are only supposed to affect. Keep that nice and clean and put away. Close that down. Let's go to the face attach, which we won't need to see any of these bones for the support. So hold down the control key. We'll change their draw modes to N. We'll close that down and close down the head. So what we have left are animation bones. We probably won't need to see the eyelid support left and right bones, so hold down the control key, multi-select those. We'll red lock them and change their draw modes to N. Let's play around with the chin. Now that we have our, let's grab the jaw, move it up and down. You can see because we've added a MetaEffector that the exclusion is happening across the jaw too. So we need to add some support bones to the chin. Let's go into Setup, go to Back View here, and we'll just tap the plus key to add a bone to the chin support. We'll move this out on X. Go to a left view. Pitch it all the way back. Because this is a support bone, we can move it in any direction and orientation we want. Let's position this over by the cheek area. Move it on X. So we further refine the field of influence of the mesh. Set the range on this one down to a little lower, so it only affects everything within a short fall off of the radius sphere. Go back into Animate, take a look at that. And grab the jaw, move it up and down. Yeah, the jaw is working pretty good. Let's reset that keyframe. Let's grab that bone, go back into Setup here. Name this bone Chin Sup R. Use the divide key on the keypad to mirror that across. Change this one to Chin Sup L. We won't need to see any of that. Those don't get animated. Hold on the control key and change their draw modes to N. So all we have left are animation controls. Now when we're up, we can grab the head and rotate the head around, and it seems to be doing a pretty good job. You want to see what it looks like with the meta-NURBS on. Let's go up to the top. Let's open up the Nate Geometry Null, highlight the bodybuilder, and tab him into meta-NURBS. And see just how the mesh operates with the head. So far it looks like he's actually moving around and his muscles are doing a really good job. Go to File. We're going to save this scene as Nate Setup L.